everybody watching this who has Mars and Aries, I'm gonna need you to sit still for like 15 to 20 minutes, okay? Okay. Hola my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is a community for you. Today we're talking all about having Mars in Aries, and what this means is at the exact moment you were born, the planet Mars was moving through the zodiac constellation of Aries. This is not to be confused with having Aries sun. That is completely different, and that is not what this video is about. I like to start off these videos by giving you a little introductory portion to the planet Mars in case you're not completely familiar with what the energy even entails in Mars. So be sure that you're watching that if you don't understand the planet Mars, because you will better understand your placement moving forward. After that, I'm going to give some general traits of the placement Mars in Aries, and I finish off the video with a couple empowering tips for you if you have this placement or if you know somebody who does. So be sure you're staying tuned for that, because I think astrology is a beautiful guidebook to our lives and to who we are and to our personal psychology. But we tend to view it as detrimental, and my goal with these videos is to provide you, again, a positive outlook on your placement and some helpful tips. So again, be sure you're staying tuned to watch that at the very end. First, let's briefly discuss what Mars means in astrology. First off, Mars is the planet of our quote-unquote animalistic instincts: action, ambition, desire, and passion. It rules over the zodiac sign Aries, but it's also the co-ruler and traditional ruler of Scorpio before Pluto came into the picture. The Mars placement in our birth chart can give us insight on how we physically take action in the world, what ignites our inner fire, and how we tame or transmute that fire into reality. Whereas Venus is about what we are attracted to in the physical realm, Mars is more so how we actually act on, pursue, and express those desires. It is the primary conductor of our innermost passions, and it gives us a direct pathway on how we assert ourselves in the world. Remember to check if Mars was retrograde at the time that you were born, because this also affects how its placement manifests in your life. When you pull up your natal chart, check to see if your Mars has a little R or RX next to it. This indicates that that planet was retrograde at the time of your birth. Now let's talk about the general traits of somebody who has Mars in Aries. First and foremost, it's important to remember that Aries is the cardinal fire sign, ruled by Mars, which means Mars is at home in this placement, symbolized by the ram. Number one, these individuals are likely quite bold in their actions, true to who they are, and don't really like to sit around wasting time. Considering Aries is ruled by Mars, again, this means Mars is at home in this sign, making the energy here more harmonious and positive. The nature of Mars is greatly amplified in this placement, so this means that when this person wants to take action on something, there's probably not much that anyone can do to stop them. When I create a visual in my mind of this placement, I definitely imagine a powerful fire that rapidly moves through the land that no one can fully harness. That description may have sounded a bit harsh, but I promise I didn't mean it that way whatsoever. When you think of a fire is definitely something that you tend to fear and something that can be very scary. But at the same time, when we learn how to harness a fire, it is one of the most beautiful things, and it also renews the land. You know, when forests like wildfires naturally happen, yes, that's a danger to us as humans because we have so many populated regions where we exist. But if you just let the earth burn, if you just let the earth burn with its wildfires naturally, that's a natural cycle of renewal. So Aries is very representative of renewal and new cycles. And when it comes to the planet Mars, which Mars is the fiery planet that adds energy to Aries, you have somebody who, with that energy combined, that super explosive, fiery, energetic, passionate energy, you have somebody who wants to live life on their terms, and they're not usually afraid to do so. One of the biggest reasons nobody can stop them, like a burning, raging wildfire, is because Aries and Mars is very connected to our raw, instinctive desires. Mars is known to rule ego, and because Aries is ruled by Mars, Aries is very connected to the ego. And this may sound contradictory, but what I have found is that a lot of Aries are actually quite spiritual, like very spiritual. And I never would have associated spiritual with Aries initially, just off first impression of the zodiac sign. But it makes sense because they are so connected to our most raw, barbaric, natural desires. So obviously this can take a more negative route, or it can take a more positive route. That's with anything, right? So when it comes to somebody who has Mars in Aries, they're going to follow those innermost desires and raw passions that they have. Hopefully they're not following the ones that lead them down a bad path, but if they follow the ones that give them happiness and fulfillment, then that's one of the most beautiful parts of this placement. If you know somebody who has this placement, or if you have it yourself, just know that it is so beautiful and respectable that you are so willing to go after what you want. And even though it may frustrate others who know you, that they can't tell you what to do, or you may not take their advice, it is just so, like, wouldn't you rather have that than be somebody who stagnates all the time and brings downfall into their life or sadness into their life because of that stagnation? This sign definitely wants to live vibrantly and passionately. If something doesn't sit correctly with that instinctive nature that they tend to follow, then most likely they're not going to entertain it whatsoever. Number 2, it's likely that those with this placement aren't afraid to start new ventures and pursue things that they feel passionate about. Since Aries is also the cardinal sign, this means that there is a natural tendency to be more of a trailblazer or a leader among the zodiac signs. So with Mars in Aries, this creates someone who is assertive about what they want in the world, and they may not hesitate to go after it, as mentioned in the previous point. But this can take the form of romantic, sexual pursuits, career pursuits, etc. This trait is obviously kind of in the same vein as the first trait that we talked about, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that because they're willing to live a life that is true to themselves and not necessarily listen to what other people are saying all the time, it's highly likely that you'll find those with this placement following more unorthodox career paths, or career paths that others might not even think about, or that are a bit more unusual. This is definitely not the type of person who wants to just sit around in the same routine in the same office every day. That might quite literally drive this person mad if they tried to do that. But it's not just their need for activity and vibrancy in their lives that leads them to follow more unorthodox career paths. It's also more so the fact that, again, this is a trailblazing sign. It's a cardinal sign. It's a sign of renewal and fresh beginnings, like I mentioned. So a lot of times they're very creative in what they pursue. They may be an entrepreneur, some sort of creative entrepreneur. They may seek out career paths that are kind of ones you don't really think about much, but they lead like a really cool life. Like maybe they're a skydiving instructor or something, you know, just anything connected to creation and passion, adrenaline, liveliness, activity, and especially something that is on their own terms. That can really be a big theme here when it comes to any pursuit that they take on. With that being said, it also wouldn't be unlikely for these individuals to be trendsetters in the field that they're pursuing, whatever it may be. In general, Aries energy has a knack for bringing fresh perspective and fresh action where something might have become mundane or monotonous. And because of this, these individuals can be very good at standing out, and others are probably going to notice them because they tend to live to the beat of their own drums, and they do bring fresh ideas to the table. Number 3, Those with this placement are likely to be very active individuals that need some form of regular movement and activity in their lives. Whenever the element of fire is present, there is a strong connection to physical movement and energy in an individual. Here, this energy is channeled through a planet that is connected to the physical senses. So it's likely that these are naturally active individuals that crave movement or adventure in some way. It's because of that, there's probably a lot of athletic potential here, or the need to express themselves physically on a regular basis to channel that abundance of energy they have within. This could be through more active careers, like I mentioned before, personal health goals, athleticism, active hobbies. And in that same vein, Aries Mars will likely crave some type of adventure on a regular basis. Like I mentioned before, this isn't a placement that will do too well in a more mundane, stable, repetitive lifestyle. They may be able to live in that lifestyle. Obviously, this placement will take different forms depending on your other placements in the birth chart. So maybe you do like having a stable job, but if you do have a stable job, then you're going to need liveliness and adventure elsewhere. So taking frequent vacations or changing up where you go on the weekends or things like that, or changing up things in your daily routine will be very important for this placement because they need that. Even if you're not conscious of those needs, you need it. That's the thing about a lot of astrological placements that we talk about is I think a lot of people expect to be conscious of what they need and what they want. And if I say something, they're kind of like, well, I don't really I think I'm okay without that. But I dare you to try it because a lot of times our placements are pointing at things that we didn't even know that we needed. And that's again why it's such a positive guidebook for us. So definitely infusing adventure into your life, whatever type of life you're living, if you have this placement, is extremely important for you. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss other videos on astrology, spirituality, and positive self-development. And if you have Mars in Aries, be sure you leave a comment down below, or if you know somebody who does, tell us who it is in your life that has this placement. I'd love to know. Number 4. It's likely that Mars and Aries individuals enjoy a healthy challenge and live to conquer and triumph over their obstacles. The ram is the symbol for Aries, representing Aries' often courageous, bold nature. With Mars and Aries, I dare say that they need some sort of productive challenge in their lives. This brings us back to the earlier point that they tend to need adventure and fresh pursuits. Mars in Aries tends to have this optimistic, almost youthful lust for life that can be simultaneously beautiful and difficult for others to keep up with. If this person has an ongoing long-term pursuit that they're passionate about and keeps them on their toes, then this is often what will make them happiest and how they can best channel this energy. Now, with Mars, we're also talking about not just ambition in career pursuits, but we're also talking about ambition in general. So Mars, again, is very connected to the physical senses. So here we're also going to be taking into consideration the ambition that goes into sexual and romantic pursuits, because again, we're connected to the physical senses here. There may be a tendency with those that have Mars in Aries to look at people almost like conquests, and they might channel that need for adventure and variation into their romantic and or sexual pursuits. So this is something to be wary of if you are somebody with this placement. Obviously, express yourself in a healthy way, however you enjoy to, in a romantic or sexual manner. I am not one to judge. Nobody is one to judge what makes you physically happy, but try to make sure you're not tearing other people apart as you do so. This placement can be very quick to discard things because they're not afraid to move on to the next thing if they need to. They do not have that fixed mentality. Like some of the fixed signs like Taurus, Scorpio, etc., they might really invest in something and then be afraid to discard of it or move on because they are so invested in that and they become fixated on that. But this is not the case with somebody with Mars and Aries. They definitely don't have a problem discarding of something that isn't working for them, but also if it becomes very boring. So maybe some type of career or routine or person that provides them complexity and depth and something to explore and something to conquer in a positive sense, not in a negative sense, is probably going to be pretty important to this individual. Lastly, let's talk about a couple empowering tips for anybody who has Mars in Aries, or if you know somebody who does. Number 1, Mars in Aries should stay wary of the instinctive desires that can lead them down dishonorable paths. On one hand, this placement tends to be so lively, energetic, and ready for anything as long as their heart aligns with it. But the potential challenge with this is the need to follow all instinctive desires, even if they aren't the best. This is especially true when we take into consideration the fact that Mars is the planet directly connected to physical sexual desire and expression, as well as the ego. So following problematic pursuits with money or sex can be likely with this placement if they are not finding the most productive, healthy ways to channel those desires. At the end of the day, I personally believe that it is very important for this placement to be honest with themselves, brutally honest with themselves about what they want. Because if they are not being brutally honest about what they want and following that honesty in their heart, and they're negating that and they're trying to do something that doesn't align with them or be with somebody who doesn't align with them, whatever it is, it's going to lead them down a bad path. Because say we'll use a romantic situation as an example, but say that they're with somebody that they just don't feel is what they want, and they don't feel fulfilled, and they are kind of hopeless about the situation. They're not going to just suppress their desires. They're going to go out and satisfy their desires elsewhere, most likely. Not everybody with this placement is the same. This is just generalized what may be the energy when it comes to this placement not following their desires. Honestly, because they will follow their desires, but whether they're doing it in an honest manner is what really matters. We don't want to go down a dishonest, dishonorable path that leads to a lot of negative consequences because you were going down a black hole of instinctive desires that are not good for you. Overall, my point is that if they're not choosing to live a life that is true to who they are and the things that they want, then I think that is what will lead to the most sporadic behavior. Number 2, stay active and have fun, but remember to rest and be present. This placement is arguably one of the most energetically potent placements in astrology, so it needs movement. Even if you think you don't want to be active, you need to. There is such a powerful, intense energy built up here, but it needs a way to transmute itself, or it could turn into a lot of pent-up anger, aggression, and frustration. And alongside exercise and activity, you also need fun. Again, this placement and being mundane do not mix whatsoever. It's vital that you regularly keep life vibrant and variant through different experiences, having fun with other people, expressing yourself in a way that satisfies you, etc. But in addition to being physically active overall, this placement is one that does need to remind itself to slow down and rest sometimes and be present. This placement may very much have the energy of I'll sleep when I die. And ambition is great. And the optimism behind their ambition most times is beautiful and so respectable. But you need rest. You need rest. You need time to slow down. So maybe instilling some type of slower mindful practice, at least one little mindful practice in your day to remember to slow down and regulate your nervous system will be very important for you. So that's going to be different for everybody. What works for you is going to be different than the next person with Mars in Aries. But picking up some type of breath work practice, maybe a yoga practice, because you still get to move and you still get to transmute that active energy, but it does slow you down and keeps you more in tune with your body and more aligned in that way. And this will be a positive domino effect because, again, we're so connected to the physical senses with this placement. that taking care of those physical senses and staying in tune with your body will provide a positive domino effect for everything else. Transmuting that energy in a healthy way, keeping yourself active but present in a healthy way. And that's going to allow you to have more patience, where the patience may be a challenge for this placement. So just remember that the little things matter. Sometimes this placement can be a little bit lofty in a way, where they kind of like forget the little things, and it's always about a big thing here and a big thing there. So just remembering that those little things that you do day to day matter, and they can make a big difference in everything else. Again, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell before you leave so you don't miss future videos like this one. And again, leave a comment down below if you have Mars in Aries or know somebody who does, and your thoughts on this placement. But until I see you next time, go ahead and watch these videos if you haven't already, because they will help you so much more on your astrological and spiritual journey. But until I see you next time, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate every single one of you, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Adios.